This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. This coming Sunday, a new television network opens for business, CNN, Cable News Network. Most of you won't be able to see it because it's available only to those homes hooked into certain cable television systems. But it is such a bold experiment, a television network devoted to 24-hour-a-day news, that though its beginnings may be relatively modest, its potential is enormous. Here with a report on CNN is Bob Serkin.
On a quiet Atlanta street, workmen rush to finish a major facelifting job on this old antebellum-style mansion, once a country club. Just as the man who owns it, the looks of this place tend to be deceptive. But stroll through the ornate foyer and hallways, down the stairs to the basement, and look at this.
Where's my first take? 6? Stand by 5. Come up for in 5, thank you.
It's world headquarters for the Cable News Network, the most modern, expensive newsroom in the nation. An electronic paradise designed to pump out 24 hours of television news programming a day.
From Turner Broadcasting System, introducing the Cable News Network.
The man who owns the mansion, all the gadgets, the talent, and the cable news concept is none other than Ted Turner, also known as Terrible Ted.
That's it. It's either now or never. Here it goes. Come on, Sailor, hustle it up.
Captain Outrageous, that cocky, tobacco-chewing Southerner who has conquered the high seas and the America's Cup, who bought himself a baseball and a basketball team and a couple of television stations to boot. But this is considered Turner's boldest venture, his chance to revolutionize television by offering viewers instant news anytime, any day. All of it beamed to subscribers by satellite from 8 worldwide bureaus staffed by 250. As in all his other ventures, Ted Turner is spending lots of money here. The cost of putting this operation on the air through the first year is $40 million, a hefty price tag, until one considers the fact that $40 million is what a major network news department may spend in 3 or 4 months. As a journalist, Turner is a novice. That's why he's depending on veteran news executive Reese Schoenfeld to make it work by Sunday.
We're going to change the deadlines to the whole country. We're going to we hope, make the country realize that news is ongoing, that it doesn't stop at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and that if something happens at 12:30 at night, you don't have to wait until 7 o'clock the next morning to see it.
Are you worried about keeping the quality high?
Yep, very worried. But so long as we're accurate and fast, that's all I'm really going to look for.
In addition to continuous news updates, viewers will watch a variety of special programming, commentaries from such notables as Senator Barry Goldwater, Ralph Nader, and Bella Abzug. To keep costs at a minimum, Turner has hired a group of young, inexperienced studio technicians, but he has mixed them with seasoned, well-known, and highly paid on-air reporters, many of whom have come from long careers in established networks.
Being on a network gives you, as you know, a certain amount of recognition. That's not really as important to us, and as I know it's not to you, as it is in having an outlet for what you want to do. And you look around here, boy, there's plenty of outlets.
So far, more than 2.5 million households in 42 states have subscribed to the Cable News Network, cost 15 cents per month in addition to the normal cable fee. That's 1 out of every 4 cable viewers hooked in, or 5% of all television homes. Turner's goal in 3 years, about 5 million households. As in his other businesses, Ted Turner expects to lose big dollars before he makes some. In 3 years, he may break even, or he may be forced to kill the lights, call back the painters, and live in this dream house. Bob Serkin, ABC News, Atlanta.
In a moment, we'll be talking with the man behind CNN, Ted Turner. Cable viewers may not be seeing very much of Ted Turner when his news network begins this weekend, but there is not much doubt his presence will be felt. It's his money, but also his reputation as a winner that's at stake. And Turner does not seem the sort of person who's content to stay quietly behind the scenes. We talked with him earlier today at the headquarters of CNN in Atlanta. Mr. Turner, that's one very impressive-looking set you've got there.
Well, thank you, Ted.
What are you? I was trying to introduce you in the appropriate manner. Are you chairman of the board, president, chief stockholder, owner, or what?
Well, pretty much all of that.
Which makes you one of the most powerful men in broadcasting now, from one day to the next.
I wouldn't say that. Your cameraman was just telling me to look into the lens, so I'm not too powerful. I'm doing what you're asking me to do right now, for instance.
You've developed, Mr. Turner, something of a reputation for being, to put it as charitably as possible, flamboyant. And I suspect, because you've been very successful in everything you've done, that's more of a front than anything else. Tell me about the real Ted Turner. What does he have in mind for this new news organization?
Well, Ted, first of all, I haven't been successful in everything I've done. Far from it. I've had plenty of failures in my life. But with the news organization, the main thing we'll be doing is providing it 24 hours a day. And we'll be providing in-depth coverage of sports news and financial news. With the expanded format, we won't have the time restraints that the network news departments have of having to select, you know, just a few of the stories, because there's so many that you'd like to run, you just don't have time to run them.
Well, give me a for instance. Let's say the other day, it was after the evening newscasts went off the air that the trouble broke out in Gwangju in Korea. What would you have done about that?
Oh, we'd have gone right to it. We'd have gone right to it.
How? Would you have had someone there?
Well, I don't know whether we would have had someone there. We eventually will have someone in every potential hot spot in the world, because we intend to move our budget up substantially. We're just getting started. We don't have the potential of the 75 million homes that you do. We're just getting started down here. We'll increase the budget. We'll be outspending the networks very shortly if we're successful.
You're a good salesman, Mr. Turner, and as a good salesman, you've done one very smart thing already, and that is you've attacked the networks for being responsible, more or less, for all the ills of the 20th century, or at least this half of it. Why?
Well, it's not really, this is not network news that I was attacking. It's the idiotic type entertainment programming and the violence and the sleazy use of sex that has occurred, you know, mostly during the last few years. I, like many other Americans, and it's been written up in many places, have decried the gradual decline in the quality of television programming on the networks that has recently been occurring.
And you think that's responsible for what?
I think it's responsible for the inflation. I think it's responsible for the demise in our military position. I think it's responsible for the deficits. I think it's partially responsible for our lack of an energy program, because the people are not being, most people watch television most of the time, and they're not being adequately informed on the important issues of the day. I mean, we cover and it's not really popular to run these sort of programs. The networks run the programming that they feel like is the most popular, will attract the most audience all of the time. If a program doesn't have a 30% share of the audience, it's canceled. At my networks, we don't do that. If a program, we feel like a program needs to be run, we run it, and we don't worry about the ratings, because some people do watch it, and those are the people that we want to get the information to.
Let me ask you for a moment to be just a little more specific than you were, Mr. Turner. How does the sleaze on television account for inflation? Let's start with that.
Well, because the people are not seeing any programs on... I have never seen one program on the network that encouraged the saving of money, for instance. Have you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just for the sake of argument, let's you answer the questions and let me ask it.
Well, I mean, I don't watch everything on the network.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, well, that's a good point. But the lack of a capital formation, which is occurring in the country now, is a very important problem. I don't think I've ever seen that addressed in any sort of detail by any network.
And you're going to do that?
Yes, we are.
Mr. Turner, all I know is what I read in the newspapers, as Will Rogers used to say, and your net worth is supposed to be, what, somewhere between $80 and $100 million?
I'm not saying, but whatever it is, it's committed right now. We're going to lose a lot of money before this news network turns around. So whatever I have is being put at risk on this project, and if it's not successful, I'll be looking for a job.
You're throwing all the dice on this one.
Why not? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Faint heart ne'er won fair lady.
Well, on that original point, Mr. Turner, thank you very much indeed, and I do wish you the very best of luck. I think it's going to be beneficial to all of us.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back in just a moment with more. Tom Shales is a syndicated television critic for the Washington Post. If there is a less popular man in the executive suites of the three major networks, his name does not leap readily to mind. Mr. Shales' columns are always interesting, frequently lucid, and usually amusing. They rarely, however, have anything good to say about the network, so we thought it might be useful to hear what Mr. Shales has to say about Ted Turner's new network, CNN. Mr. Shales, you're going to let this baby wet its first diaper, or you're going to kill it in the cradle?
Gee, what an alternative. I think everyone's going to be watching on Sunday. You'll probably be watching, and Rune Arledge will be watching, and I think you have to kind of wish this thing well in the back of your minds at least, but you also have to kind of wonder if there isn't an awful lot of wind in Ted Turner's sails that doesn't really mean much. He hasn't really spelled out to me what a great alternative to the network news departments he's going to offer.
Well, I mean, the one thing he's doing is he's going to have it on for 24 hours a day. Now, isn't that in and of itself an improvement?
No, I don't think so, because more news is not necessarily better news or, you know, more thorough news. In a few markets, they've expanded the local early evening news to 2 hours, but what you usually get is the same amount of news and then a lot of padding, you know, diet tips and how to train your dog and fun fashions and all of that stuff.
Well, but the fact that it's there at least provides an opportunity to fill that vacuum with some good material. I mean, he's got some good professionals working for him.
Yeah, but then again, that makes me slightly skeptical, because who has he gone to for this new alternative news service but to existing local commercial stations and commercial networks? If he were really trying to do something new, and I haven't heard a single, you know, innovative approach to the news that he's offered except to give more of it. If he were really doing something new, I wonder if he wouldn't look for some fresher faces than, for instance, Dan Shore.
All right, well, yours is a fresher face, at least on television. What would you propose?
What would I propose? Well, they said they had young people running the technical equipment. It might not be a bad idea to give some people out of journalism school, I mean, who've had some training anyway, a chance to get on the air, and not necessarily to rely on everything that's been done before, or to imitate the way the networks have done things. I mean, Turner is even using consultants who've been used at commercial stations and networks, so that I'm afraid it's going to look an awful lot like the kind of news we get on TV now, which doesn't mean that that's bad, it just means it isn't different.
Is it going to work?
I think it's going to take at least a year to find out. There'll be a tremendous amount of attention at first, and then we're going to have a cooling off period, and we'll find out if there's anything to this.
Do you hope it's going to work?
I do. I think it's another inroad for cable. You know, there's already an all-sports cable network, and there's all religion networks, and all movies, and almost everything. There certainly should be an all-news cable network, and this guy certainly has the drive to make it work. Some people think he has the money, and whether or not he has the resources, we'll find out later.
I suspect that's the nicest thing you're going to say about him and CNN, so let's quit at that point. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Shales.
Thank you.
We'll have the latest on Iran in a moment. That's our report for tonight. This is Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been